In the first video about infiltration, I talked about how infiltration depends on three different factors: on the slope of the land, on the amount of vegetation on the land, as well as the porosity of the soil and the surface. All right, and then I didn't speak about the amount of runoff and the amount of infiltration. And from what I understand, from what I've read, I haven't really studied this too carefully, but the amount of runoff is pretty low compared to the amount of infiltration. And if you really think about the amount of water in our rivers and streams and our lakes, it is extremely small compared to the huge amount of groundwater. I'm writing this big so you can remember it. That there is just an enormous amount of groundwater, and if you compare the amount of available fresh water to us to use, the amount of groundwater far outweighs the amount of lakes and streams and rivers. So the amount of water underground is far more than the amount of fresh water above the ground. So it does make sense that there would be far more infiltration than there would be runoff. And also there's another factor that we should talk about as far as runoff, and let me get a fresh sheet here, is that runoff really causes a lot of problems. So when we think about runoff, and I'm not sure if it's run off with a hyphen or not, but when we think about runoff, if there's a huge amount of runoff in an area, that area can really run into many problems. And the main problem that it will face is the problem of erosion. And if you recall from our rock cycle unit, erosion is the movement of sediments. And when we're talking about the erosion from runoff, we're talking about how the water kind of sweeps away and washes away the soil and all that's in front of it. And I just wanted to show you some pictures that can display and show you exactly the problems that too much runoff can cause. And that's a big problem. And scientists are always trying to figure out how we can, we're trying to reduce the amount of runoff, because runoff can be so damaging to our surface soil. So here's a picture of some of the effects of runoff. So here you see this huge channel where an area of land was subject to a great deal of runoff water, and the runoff water basically dug this trench and destroyed the land. Here's another picture where a stream of runoff over time has ruined these crops on this farm, and you can see all the deterioration and how the runoff just kind of swept all this plant life away. Yet another picture of the effects of runoff, and you can see on this, the side of this mountain, the runoff from the precipitation went down, and continuously going down the same path would tear apart all the vegetation and all the life here. And then if you've ever, you've probably seen it, even in the city, where you see a tree where its roots are starting to be exposed. And that is due to basically runoff, where the soil has been kind of eroded away. And we're trying to make sure that there isn't an excess of runoff in an area, so we don't have these effects, and the soil stays intact, and the nutrients stay in the soil, and it's able to be a productive and healthy soil for plant life. So remember that most of the water does infiltrate, but most of the water does infiltrate, but we are very concerned with an over amount or an abundance of runoff, because it can be very damaging to the soil and the land.